everyone, welcome back. If you're new here, welcome to the crazy house. All hands and feet inside the car at all times. We will be doing a Create This Book challenge at the end of the video, but first I want to practice a little bit and show you my first creation. They are stained glass, or faux stained glass to be more exact. I used 2 different types of school glue. Let's get to it. Now, anyone that's been here before knows I like to use found objects. Fortunately, I did make something out of this one, but it took more effort than I was expecting. This particular frame doesn't come out, so therefore we had to trace it within the frame, which made it more difficult. So if you're able to do this or want to, start with a frame that the glass comes out of. Now on to the tracing. As you can see, that line was not where it needed to be, so I used rubbing alcohol to get it off and tried to reposition everything. Now to flip it around and start the tracing. It doesn't need to be exact. Well, most of the things I do are not exact, but it needs to have the general outline so that you know what you're doing for the next step. Low-key feeling like a kindergartner with a Sharpie at this point, but it will work out, I hope. After I get the outline done, we'll move on to getting the stained glass pieces or placement of where you want the stained glass look to be. Now I want to tell you a little story, because this project didn't just start in my head. My little girl has a rare disorder, and the symbol for this disorder happens to be a butterfly. So ever since she was born, we would refer to her as butterflies. She'd collect butterflies. It's a wonderful obsession, and it connects us to part of who she is. Recently, she got diagnosed with autism, which wasn't exactly a surprise to us, but a new adventure none the same. So when I asked her what I should do for my project, she said a colorful butterfly. So here we go, making my little girl the most colorful butterfly I could think of. After flipping it over to the back side and looking at the outline you made, remember it's just guidelines. Now that I have my clear glue down, I'm mixing in the blue paint for the background. It's really not an exact science. It's just where you think your opacity needs to be. It's admittedly a little difficult at first because as an artist you want everything to have coverage, and the whole point of this is for it to show through. Here I am just doing the background in different shades of blue. Now I started the colorful section, in quotes of course, because we're starting with brown, because I didn't want the black to read as gray when the lights were on. You guys can tell me what you think at the end, but at this point, the glue mixture looked very suspicious. If I thought ahead, I probably would have colored in the different shapes I wanted a certain color to make it more symmetrical. Unfortunately, the butterfly is not symmetrical, but my little mini-me was very, very pleased with the outcome, so I started with her favorite color for the antennae, and then slowly filled in everything. The thing to remember here is that you're not going for opacity, and that you are going to have thick black lines on the outside of each square. Now just fill in the rest of the colors. Of course, you try to do the same colors together so they don't dry out between what you're doing, and attempt some sort of balance. For this one in particular, I was just trying to get all the colors in that I know she would like and make it pretty. Again, first attempt. I let this dry for about 2 hours to make sure everything was solid, and then did touch-ups where there was no paint, because the paint begins to pool in the middle of the frame. It's likely not level, but that's a problem for a different day. I'll spare you the glue drying process. Anyone else grow up and put glue all over their hands just to peel it off? The things you tell your kids when they get older. Like my kid asked me one day, she said, "What did you guys do before you had cell phones?" I was like, "I don't know." Peeled glue off her hands? The look on her face was priceless. She thought I was kidding. Now going into this one and using opaque glue to add dimension. I will explain that more later. And now we slide into the next project. Now we're off to the main event. Create contrast. Is it still create this book if you're not creating a book? Let me know in the comments. Let's make the lovely Mariah Elizabeth proud. We're doing a lovely little sketch. We're going to find out shortly why I do 3D art and not drawing. Okay, now it's a very rough sketch. Just making sure that I have the tree where I want it to be and how I want it to be. The biggest thing when drawing a tree is to make sure that you are going with decreased limb length and also decrease the width of each branch as you go up the tree. Now trace the image on the panel. This would be your front side. Just setting more guidelines so I know where to put the color in the background. If you make a mistake during this process, don't worry about it because you can use hand sanitizer or rubbing alcohol to erase your mistake. I do have a few minor things still there, but we're coming back in to line it with black at the end. So how do you go Mariah Elizabeth style and also create contrast? My idea was to use the black opaque paint to color in the tree so that when we do put lights in it, the amount of light coming through will be different compared to the transparent glue we're going to use in a little bit. Try to color the lines as much as possible because the glue does spread out and move as it's drying, so try to give it a little room to do so. As you can see, I'm going back into the glue that I previously put down in order to prevent pooling or adding too much glue. I use the tip of the glue to pull out the extra from the previous run, and then gently squeeze more glue out, being careful to leave the tip of the glue on the glass to prevent it from squirting out. Anyone who tries this, please leave a link on my Facebook page. I'll leave the information in the description. With that, we have color, a little hole for animal to burrow. Is it really a burrow, or is it called something else? I'll look it up and put it on the screen if it's something different. What do you think would live in this tree? Maybe an owl that needs to find his nest at nighttime? Or maybe it's a security light. My first thought was to go in rainbow order, but then I would have to decide what the first color of the rainbow is. Some people say it's red, others pastel pink, which is not the same as light pink. Pastel pink has a little bit of orange in it, which is odd. I'll put that up on the screen to show you. It's just one of those things. I decided to go with warm colors on top. Those are your oranges, pinks, yellows, trying to stick with what the sky could possibly be. Now I put green on the bottom while I contemplated what would go in the middle. Where do you think this is? Maybe a Candyland? What was your favorite game growing up? Mine was Candyland. I liked when the teacher would actually give you candy if you won. Talk about motivation. So how are you guys picturing this owl here? I think he's a black owl or a dark one so that he can hide the sky. But an all black owl in Candyland, that would be boring, right? So when his wings open up, you see the colors of the rainbow in his feathers. Just adding the last blues, trying to make sure nothing touches together, trying to give it a little variation. At this point, I'm also looking over the previous work, making sure that top half of this is also as opaque as I want it, and deciding to add one more layer off camera. I had to let it all dry overnight after it was done. The next part is traditionally called leading when you're making stained glass. I took opaque glue and lined each shape. While you're doing this, it's important to place the nozzle of the glue right before the end of the last line of glue you completed. This will force any of the excess glue to go on to the next line and prevent pooling as the glue spreads after you are done. So you must make the lines as thin as possible. the next photo, I will show you everything lit up. I tried to use baking paper to diffuse the light with this one. Unfortunately, once it's on, I cannot take it off because then it would mess up with the paint.